All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Colby Turner, and I'm the Corporate Communications Manager here at Core Education. I'll be your moderator today. And today's session is actually part of a series on driving digital change. And today's topic is the role of the website in higher education. So just a couple of notes on logistics here. We will be sharing the recording of and the slide deck following this webinar in an email. All participants will be muted and off camera, but you can use the Q&A feature to submit any questions you might have or utilize the chat to send messages, post links, or attachments as needed. And I'm going to introduce our wonderful panelists today. We have Kamalika Sandel, Chief Executive Officer, and Evan Weisenfeld, Senior Vice President of Marketing here at Core Education. Kamalika has a combination of executive experience in business and higher education, with vast experience in creating and executing digital strategies, transforming processes, and influencing policies and organizational change. She's held executive positions at several organizations, including Capital One, Cummins, Pepsi, American University, and New Jersey Institute of Technology. Evan is a senior marketing and business development executive with global experience in delivering distinct competitive advantages via digital marketing, analytics, and strategic insights. Evan has held executive positions at the National Society of Collegiate Scholars, U.S. News Global Education, Platform Q Education, and Zentropy Partners, part of the MRM McCann Global Agency. Kamalika and Evan, welcome to our session on driving digital change. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Colby. It's great to be here, and let us walk you through the topics that we will cover in the course of our time today. We will talk about the importance of the digital front door. When we think of the websites, its significance, the characteristic that comes from conceptualizing or envisioning the website as the digital front door. Then we're going to walk through the key elements of an effective website. We will discuss strategies for future-proofing your organization's website, and we'll spend some time on how do you get started? What are those starting strategies? And hopefully after we've gone through that, we will have time for questions and answers. A little bit about Core and who we are. Many of you know Core. Core is our goal when we work with institutions, partner with institutions. Core is a public benefit corporation, and we want to transform the business model of higher education. Why is that important? Because if you think about the change in the landscape that the sector is facing overall, there is truly a need to figure out how to pivot and move on growth and transformation strategies beyond what was done before and leveraging a pace of change that was different from what was done before. So when you introduce those elements, apply strategies for growth, what we find is different tactical strategies need to be brought to life to execute on these plans. Core does a lot of work as a long-term mission-critical operating partner, which means we work on long-term projects for our partners. It could be, as we will talk about in this session today, website redesign and development, but it also could be real estate strategies. It could be technology transformation work. Any and all of those, we combine them as a set of comprehensive supporting services and bring it to fruition for our institutions. Core has 40 active engagements today with a system-wide budget impact that is closing in on $1.4 billion. 24 of these 40 engagements are our long-term institutional affiliate partners. I won't walk you through the next very detailed slide that talks about all of the different capabilities that Core has, but broadly speaking, our capabilities are in three groups. One is revenue-related revenue solutions. The second is technology and digital. And then the third is capital strategies and institutional operations. When you think of the website, it's between a revenue strategy because there are several things about the website that is critical for revenue growth, revenue functions of an institution, but it's also part of a broader institutional strategy that needs technology and data and digital to come to life. We get to talk to you more about that. CORE's work is very much horizontally integrated. We know that the institutions we work with, sometimes by nature of years-long financial or functional design, sometimes get siloed. CORE talks about horizontally integrating solutions. We have specializations in marketing, specializations in digital, but how we do the work is very integrated. What you'll see in the next slide is our web design team has individuals who are strategists. They have design talent, they have technology and development talent, and we use these specializations to bring a full, robust web design in front of you. You will have these slides. The work we do is on full website redesign projects. It starts with discovery and planning. We will talk more about content and digital strategy creation, user experience design, content management, digital experience platforms, migration of content, and also launch and post-launch support. The capabilities that you see on the right-hand side are bread and butter for any web redesign team or website management team. We will touch on search engine optimization, content creation that is targeted for SEO, website accessibility, brand assessment and how that comes into play, online reputation management, and finally, being very focused on analytics and reporting and having data, not necessarily as the only thing that leads our way here, but definitely data as a form of reference that influences our work. Let me go to the next slide. So the first topic, we want to talk about the website as the digital front door to an institution. Today, when students are coming to your campus and when anyone, it could be a faculty who you're in the process of recruiting, someone who just wants to know more about the institution, coming to the institution's website is not necessarily the only way that they find out about the institution. So they'll search social media, there's posts, there is discussions about the institution that is found in non-institutional websites. There's tons of ways that people are finding out about your institution, but they're still using the website as the digital front door. Let's go to the next slide. There's a few things about conceptualizing this digital front door that I want to talk to you today. One is, why does it matter? They're learning about your institution in various ways. They're going to various sites to learn about that. Well, the first thing I want to start with is perception alignment. When they read up about the institution in these other sites, or they go to social media, or they go to one of the sites that talk about rankings and ratings, they build a perception of the institution through those. If they come to your website, which is that front door, and that perception is not aligned, that's a big loss in social credibility. So that perception alignment and the concept of doing that is a big deal. It is also allowing you as an institution's stakeholder to talk about the institution, to present the institution in a way that you want the story to be told and shared, and in a way that you feel the audience coming to the website will be supported and served. So that's perception alignment, first impressions. First impressions are not necessarily first, but it's first from your point of view of how you want the story to be told. The third point about being an engagement platform, that is a big deal. People sometimes take engagement and think that it has to be engaging, doesn't mean it has to be entertaining. It just has to keep the individual's interest alive. Anyone who's looking at a website, you can imagine their browser has many different windows open, many different tabs open. When we think of them multitasking, they're not necessarily looking at two parts of a content at the same time. What they're doing is they're frequently switching their context. And you want the website to give them one reason to stay on the current content. It is way too easy to look at something else. That frequent context switching is real. And that's what at the heart of getting them out of what they are beginning to look at, or the way you want the impression and the perception alignment to be created. It's way too easy without the benefit of engaging content and building in engagement as a design principle. Specifically, it's too easy for them to lose that. It is definitely an information hub. When individuals are coming to the website, there's something they want to know, there's something they want to do. They can't do what you think they need to do if they don't find the right information on the site. So making sure that the information is targeted and it's relevant and it can be found, that's very important. And finally, it's the representation, the extension, the representation of the institution's brand. So making sure there is enough that talks about brand in a larger context, regardless of the audience, is important. The design principles to keep engagement alive, nurturing interest is a big design principle. Someone might be coming to the site because they've read about the institution, they want to find a degree program. Someone might be coming to the site because they have read about an article, a news article, and they want to know more about the institution. A faculty might be part of a recruiting process. They want to know what's going on about the field of research that they're interested in. No matter what it is, the website needs to be a vehicle that continues to nurture that interest. And the way that happens is providing not just relevant, but up-to-date information. Streamlining processing. If I want to find something, if I want to apply, what's the easiest way for that to happen so that interest can be turned into action? That there is a process flow underneath that is extremely important as a design principle. Showcasing the campus and community both. The college campuses are vibrant. When you look to what's happening there on a regular basis, there's a tremendous amount of activity. There's a fine line between putting all those activities out there, because then it's not coordinated and your audience will get lost. But being intentional about design that showcases campus, builds in targeting, is goes a long way. And finally, building trust and credibility. If the information about the institution says something and the information within the institution's website says something else, that's a big loss of credibility. And this final point of, as you go into this discussion, Evan's going to cover the elements of website redesign, but is it the website itself, or is it the larger web presence? Because when you think of the larger web presence, the website is a critical element, but not the only element within that paradigm. The institution has a portal, alumni has its own portal, the institution has social media. How do you look at the broader topic of web presence and digital and make the website a key element, a front door, but not the only element as part of the process? So with that, Evan, let me transition to you so that you could talk about the elements.
Thank you, Kamalika. Sorry, I had to unmute there. Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. What I hope to review with you today are some high-level topics and important areas for your consideration as it relates to your website and your overall web presence. And as we think about key elements of an effective website, we really break this down into sort of three major components. The first being design and user experience. Everybody looks at a website and has their own perception on what makes a website look nice, and what the brand representation should be, and what colors and where things should go. But it's not about the individual people and their personal preferences. It really needs to be designed from a usability standpoint and from a user-centric standpoint. The way in which somebody navigates a website, the way they find information, how you present yourself, they're all really critical to providing a user experience that is going to deliver on the promise and actually allow the individual user to accomplish their goal. And whether that goal is to learn more about your site or to apply, or perhaps it's an alumnus that's looking to donate, making it simple and easy for them to find what they're looking for and accomplish their goal. That's really the whole purpose of your website, is to provide that easy and intuitive way to do that. Responsive design is one of the things that we really try to push. And, this is a topic that has been around for a couple of years now, but surprisingly, there are still a number of sites out there in higher ed that are not built from a responsive design standpoint. And that is, they don't adapt based on the device, the type of device that the user is using, whether that's a mobile device or it's some sort of a tablet or ultimately a laptop or other computer. The website needs to adjust based on the screen size and where the focal point is and how somebody actually is able to interact with your website. If your website is not responsive designed, you're running into problems because more than 50% of your traffic is likely coming on a mobile device. And given the screen size, somebody's ability to quickly find what it is they're looking for is really an important aspect. And so making sure that your site is responsive. And with that comes the importance of navigation, making it a simple navigation and an intuitive layout. Everybody tries to get really fancy with the way they do their navigation, and there's regular navigation, and then sometimes there's global navigation, and then sometimes you have footer navigation, and sometimes you have dynamic navigation with drop downs and things. All of that can be useful from a design perspective, but again, when you're thinking about responsive design, how do you make this work for people at all levels? Also taking into account website accessibility. More and more, you have to be prepared to design for the ADA and WCAG guidelines. If your website is not considered accessible, then you open yourself up to risk, and that is for a lawsuit based on your site not being accessible. And so that would be something that I would be checking if I were you, as there are people out there who go around just suing colleges and universities to find a way to get a lawsuit settlement and earn money. And while you should be doing this because it's the right thing to do, you should also be doing this because it helps protect the institution. And then finally, really continuously analyzing user behavior and feedback to refine your user experience and your content. There are tools that you can leverage, such as Hotjar, that can provide heat maps and session recordings to understand, where does the person's mouse go? What are they clicking on that may or may not be a link? What are they trying to do? And watching that actual user behavior is going to really inform the way that your site is designed. And that leads us to content strategy and your content architecture. Developing a strategy that provides valuable, relevant, and engaging information designed from the user's perspective, not necessarily from how the university is organized. Many institutions want to structure their content and the way that they build their website based on their departments or based on whether they are offering traditional on-campus education or online education. And the reality is, everything needs to be centered around the user. How is it that they're exploring your site? And you need to have multiple redundant ways for people to be able to find information. Perhaps somebody is searching for program content and they want to learn about your business degrees. And then they want to figure out whether or not that business degree might be offered for undergraduate or graduate, and then maybe they are looking for information on whether that's on campus or online. That's one path that somebody might take to get to your content. Other people might come in specifically saying, I'm looking for an online degree, and then I'm looking for an online graduate degree, and then I'm looking for an online graduate degree in business. And so you'll see that the way in which people find content and navigate is really a personal decision, but you as the institution have to make sure that you're prepared for helping people find the content that they need to. Also, from a content strategy, is incorporating elements such as videos and student testimonials or ambassador chat programs or virtual tours. All of this is content that helps promote and sort of deliver on that promise of what information might somebody be looking for that can be short and engaging. We all know that people today have very short attention spans. They're looking for content snippets. They're looking for information that can quickly answer a question, and then they're going to move on to the next thing, and they're going to have multiple tabs open. So giving them those quick abilities to get those questions answered is really critical. And then finally, we talk about sort of finding your website, whether you're trying to find Nemo or find you. There are tactics that you need to ensure are being done properly so that your website is showing up in the right places. And a big part of that comes down to SEO, search engine optimization. And there are two components to that. One is your technical SEO, and one is your content SEO. For many schools, they fail when it comes to both these, technical and content areas. It's really critical that you look at the way in which your site is built. Your technical SEO are going to be things like proper headlines, your H1s or your H2s on the page. The way your page is tagged is very important to the way Google indexes your website and what information shows up and is visible. So the content structure, the behind the scenes of the technical side is really important to make sure that everything is tagged properly. But on the other side of it, it's the content. What information are you showing, and is that searchable? And is it done in a way that the users are using natural language search? How are they finding your content so that it shows up and it's relevant, and that Google is making sure that you're considered an authority on your institution? What you don't want is for others to be ranking above you when it comes to your content. So you need to own that. It's also really important that you look at your site speed as well as your core web vitals. Those are Google things that are really, really important. Your core web vitals is something that Google looks at for your mobile accessibility. And if you have really low core web vital scores, then they are less likely to send you traffic because it is their perception that your site will not perform well for a mobile device, and they're less likely to send that traffic. And then finally, effective page strategies. While we all wish we could live just on the organic content, the reality is that having an effective page strategy, whether that's paid ads or other media partners, that's going to be really critical, and the links that come to you from various partner sites. So these are the areas that are key elements for an effective website. And now, as we think about sort of future-proofing your website, as you think about what are all the things that you need to be doing to make sure you have the right website, you should also be thinking about where is your website going, and what are you doing to take advantage of these new trends and topics that are clearly top of mind and things that you need to be prepared for in the future. Artificial intelligence is clearly the buzzword of the year, and it will only become more and more important as you think about your website. And there are a lot of things that higher ed institutions can be doing to leverage artificial intelligence in higher ed, but in particular, it's something that you can actually be doing on your website. AI can significantly enhance the user experience. whether that's through content personalization or even operational efficiency. You can leverage chatbots and virtual assistants to support user queries and engagement. You can put AI analytics to better understand user behavior and optimize for various conversion rates. You can also leverage AI to do fraud detection and security, ensuring that the leads that you get that come in through your site are valid leads, and you can protect against hackers and bad actors, that are coming to your site and trying to perform, denial of service attacks or other things that are really important to protect against. So there are a lot of tools out there, and AI is going to be one that you should really be prepared for and be thinking about where your institution is going. The next is Google SGE. SGE stands for Search Generative Experience, and this is Google's use of AI when it comes to search. And what this is now is when you do a search on Google, instead of the top results being put at the top of the page, and that might be sponsored results, and then organic below that, Google is now replacing the top results with AI-generated results. They call it Google SGE. And this is something that everybody needs to experiment with and be prepared for, because Google SGE is going to transform how information is displayed and accessed through search engines. And this will impact website traffic and visibility. There is a very, very big concern that people will get the information on Google and never click through to go to the website. And in part, I think that is partly what Google is trying to do, because they want to own the entire user experience. What Google is doing is using AI to pull information from various sources and then display that directly on the site, trying to answer your question. And so if you're the institution and your goal is to have them find you on Google or some other tool, click through and then go to the website, you run the risk of them never actually getting to your website. So what can you do to prepare for this? Well, one is structuring your content to align with this sort of conversational and natural language search. If the content on your website is not built for having a conversation with the user and for natural language search, then you're not going to show up properly and Google is not going to display your results. You also need to be prepared to leverage structured data and rich snippets to enhance your search visibility. You need to make sure that the pages that are being indexed by Google have all of the proper structure built in, so that when Google is finding and indexing your page, they're able to pull out the information that's going to help answer that question. And the best way to prepare for that is really to be going online and using tools to look at what are people searching for? How are they finding your website? What are the queries that they're answering or that they're asking? And then make sure that your content is prepared to answer those questions, focusing on detailed, high-quality content that provides comprehensive answers. Finally, a university's reputation is critical when it comes to sort of people coming to your site and understanding more about you. The reputation can impact student recruitment. It can impact alumni engagement and even donor relations. So monitoring and responding to online reviews and social media mentions. Do you have queries set up? Do you know what people are saying about you? You need to make sure that you have the proper response process in place. It doesn't mean that you should be responding to every time somebody makes a post, but you need to be prepared. You need to make sure that you've got the tools in place to proactively manage your online presence and your narrative. And again, you can use AI tools to track and analyze your reputation metrics and feedback so that you're prepared to address whether this is something that's done on a ratings or review site, or done through social media. And then dynamic content personalization. This is one way that you can actually start to build your website to take advantage of all of these other topics, leveraging AI, preparing for SGE, and your reputation management. And this is by providing dynamic content that's personalized to the user. We talked a little bit earlier about knowing what users are searching for, and knowing what and why helps you create the content that directly addresses their needs. You can personalize that content based on the persona of the people that are coming to your site. Having various personas built, whether that is prospective student or transfer student or parent of a prospective student, alumni, donor, there's a number of different personas that you want to develop. Understanding their needs, their preferences, and their search behavior will allow you to be able to develop this dynamic content. And then you can use, again, we'll throw it out here, AI to drive personalization for delivering targeted content and recommendations. Identifying the person as they come in can also be really useful. So you might know that they were on Google and they searched for a particular term. And because of that, you have intelligence that tells you that that is a prospective first-year undergraduate student. And therefore, when you welcome them to the site is dynamic and customized to be able to answer those questions that a first-year student might be most likely to answer. If somebody is searching for transfer opportunities, then you know that they may be a transfer student. And so addressing them as a potential transfer student is another way to be able to make them feel welcomed and seen. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't also then find other content that they may be looking for, but being able to dynamically display that content based on their queries or the kinds of links or ads they click on will be a great way to be able to sort of personalize your website. And I mentioned, analyzing your search queries and making sure you understand the kinds of things people are looking for and incorporating that into your content. I know that was a lot of information, and you'll get these slides, and hopefully that'll help answer some of these questions. Oftentimes when we're speaking to institutions, one of the biggest questions is, how do we get started? There's a bit of an analysis paralysis, in part because it feels so daunting. You have this behemoth of a website. I was reviewing one recently that had over 11,000 pages on the website. And that is significant and very, very bloated. And in part, it's because of some of the things that they did early on to try to get buy-in from the entire campus community. And that's, they put everything on the public.edu website. And that's something that, we'll talk a little bit more about, but isn't necessarily the best strategy. In this case, start with your goal setting. Identify your most critical needs. What are the pieces that you have determined are the biggest areas for impact? That's really the way we strive to drive things, is what's going to impact your university in the most important way. And oftentimes that's going to be with student recruitment, and it may be around advancement. But those are the areas that have the biggest financial impact and therefore the biggest impact on the university. And then determine your work approach. Is this an optimization, something that can work on sort of enhancing the existing site, or is this going to be a new site? Do you really think it makes the most sense to start from scratch? Once you've kind of figured out what it is you want to accomplish, it's really about getting buy-in, the internal groups across campus. If you don't have internal buy-in from the various departments, from the president's office all the way down, you will struggle to execute on this project, and you will not get the support that you need to be able to go off and build this site. Then look at whether or not this is an internal or external approach. Do you have the resources and the expertise to do what is needed? If you don't, look to your partners. If you do, congratulations, that's a great place to be, and that gives you a lot of control over what you do next. But getting started, all it takes is that first step. Don't put off what you should be starting on today. Kamalika, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Evan. One of the things that we see in our work from CORE a lot, working with institutions, is there is oftentimes a thought process that a website redesign can be done as a one-off project, and it's incorrect. It's not the right way to get started. There's a fine line and a set of strategies where you don't want to boil the ocean, but you want to be strategic in your consideration of why are we going to do the website redesign? What are the fundamental pieces that will need to make up for it? And how is this going to be part of the whole? So before sharing with you why should you consider CORE for your website project, I want to bring back that fundamental premise of why is this important? Why is this important now versus later? And when that answer is clear, what CORE does is we bring in a full service solution. The biggest, if you look into the talent that makes this real in 2024, you often ask yourself, is that a marketing talent? Is that a technology talent? Is that a content talent? Is that a data talent? Is that an SEO talent? And the answer is it's all of those parts and pieces and then some. It's web accessibility talent on top of that. It's understanding the integration between web and digital media. It's understanding the integration between web and the CRM system, CRM for admissions for that institution. It's all of these talent. And so being able to bring it to you in a fully integrated solution format while not compromising or diluting any of those specializations. That's the biggest benefit of working with CORE. The second thing is we are experienced in the education sector. CORE has over 140 individuals as part of our team right now, and they are very deep experienced in one or more domains within higher education. That's marketing, that's enrollment. We have individuals who had been ex-college presidents themselves, they'd been provosts themselves, they're deans themselves. An ex-college president may not necessarily need to get involved in a website redesign project, but those individuals collectively have shaped the foundation of our design principles and enriched it by their deep understanding of the context of higher education. We not only bring that higher education context, we bring in the context of business model transformation. How has that context changed between what it was in 2015 or 2019 or even 2020 pre-pandemic to what it is now? That is what we build into all our work. And we're good at positioning this as a strategic asset, and bringing in the user-centric design pieces and the technology integration pieces. We're big believers in, if you think of the individuals who are coming to your website, all of those, look into your institution's website and see the unique page visits. You'll be surprised with the volume. It's a tremendous amount of traffic that is coming there. So the question is, how do you take that and make it into something more meaningful without necessarily collecting every bit of information that is personal from those individuals? There is macro analytics, there is also micro analytics, but the value of analytics is paramount. And when you take that and you supplement it with targeting, that's where you get to the underpinnings of the digital strategy that makes the website come to life. And that's CORE. We believe in adding those pieces together as we bring a redesign and a user-centric redesign to life. With that, I will conclude our session, and Colby, turn it back over to you to see if we have questions.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll get started on our Q&A. Thank you so much to both of you, Evan and Kamalika, for sharing those insights. let's cover these questions. All right. So, what are the biggest pitfalls you see with higher education institutions that need to be fixed?
It's a broad question. Do you mind if I start, Kamalika?
Yeah, you go ahead, get started. I'll add.
Sure. I think the biggest pitfall that I see is an institution using its website to cover off its main.edu website for every part of the campus, and allowing people to publish and departments to publish on their own with no sort of governance. And what it ultimately leads to is a very bloated website that is causing more and more problems. The website front end, the front door, as we talk about, really should be about a particular set of audience or community, and that could be sort of the front-facing door to your campus. But when it comes to your existing students, that should be on a separate portal. Or when it comes to your alumni, that might be on a separate portal. There are tools and things that you can build that then make the regular website much faster, much easier to maintain and upload, and to be able to do all the things that you need to. Also putting in place the right governance and the right practices to make sure that there's one team that's ultimately approving what content goes on the website. That way, that team can make sure that any content that's posted is built for accessibility, that it's got the right SEO structure in place. When novice users are doing things and they're editing content for their department, they mean well, and they're trying to do what they can to help support things, but oftentimes they don't have the experience necessary to really do things from both an accessibility and an SEO standpoint. And then it ultimately ends up breaking the website and causing more problems. And so building in that governance and really keeping the website sort of structured in a way that it's delivering on those target audiences. I think that's probably the biggest mistake that I see.
Yeah, I'll build on that, Evan. It comes back to the content overload that you see, and you know you're talking beyond overload. You're talking to content clutter. So if there is not meaningful governance to manage this, then that sort of clutter will happen. You know, contrary to sometimes what we think about the generation that is growing up with iPhones and Androids and all kinds of technology, they're not necessarily technology wizards. They're users of those pieces, but when they go to a website, they're not technology wizards. Neither do they have a magical ability to find their way in a clutter. They don't need fancy design. They don't need to be entertained on the website, but they need to be engaged, and they need content that is relevant. They need interactivity that keeps them there. So those elements are critically important. And if they're there, you know, Evan, your point about governance is really an excellent point, because there's been larger institution websites that I've been part of, and it starts out great. It starts out with great features, up-to-date content, interactivity, showcased the right way. But then you look at that same website 18 months out, and it's not the same. So what happened? You know, the talent, the institution's will is there, the talent is there, it's the lack of governance. And it's fundamentally important to talk about governance. I'll pair that back with the fact, and Evan, it's something that you said too, is you don't have to put everything in this one website. There is website versus web presence. Work on the overall web presence, not everything. I mean, imagine the front door of your house. If you try to put everything that's novel about your house, if you try to put into that front door, it doesn't work. So why do we try to do that to websites? And that's, it all comes back to clarity of purpose and governance, and making sure that the way, sometimes you redesign it, it starts out in a great way, but then it doesn't end that way. I'll say one more thing about it. We're in 2024. Weak SEO and lack of integration with CRM, with digital media, those are absolutely pitfalls. They're no go. That what it boils down to, you have a lot of efforts that are vying to get to the same goal, but the lack of integration will not allow it to get to that goal. So you're spending effort, spending resources, spending money, but it's not going to get there. So this integration is critical, and focus on SEO no matter what the current state is, even minus a redesign. These focuses are critical. You're getting people to come to the site. You're getting focus. Why not make as much from it as it is expected to and intended to? So those are, Colby, to your question, we can go on. This itself, the pitfalls itself, could be a whole topic, but I think those are some of the big ones that come to mind. And making sure the specializations are accounted for. Accessibility is a specialization. SEO is a specialization. Integration of technology is a specialization. Digital media is a specializations. And these are not always possible to find in a single talent. But these specializations, accounting for these specializations as your institution website comes to life and is maintained over the years, these are accounting for these specializations is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice to people on the webinar here is, if you're responsible for the website and the political nature of your institution and taking away people's ability to edit and write and publish would be something that would be a real challenge, use the idea of web accessibility and the SEO and the technical side of things, that there needs to be a review of that, because the users are not experts in those categories. And therefore, your web team, your marketing team, whoever it is that owns the site, needs to be the ones that ultimately publish. Doesn't mean that somebody can't write, but they can't publish until it's reviewed. That way, they can make sure that what's being done matches your guidelines and matches the requirements, and can keep that clutter and that just out of control aspect out of the way. And that way, because of that, you have the ability to put that governance in place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, both of you. Those were really great points, really great insights. We are about 8 minutes to 3. We probably have time for about one more question. All right. So this one reads, we know we need to overhaul our web, but it's an expensive proposition. How do we get our institution to move on this?
Yeah, finding the funds is tough. To me, a big part of it comes down to developing the ROI model, the case for why you need to be able to do this. And it's looking at your existing website and determining, again, is this an upgrade to an existing site, or is this a complete overhaul? And then understanding what are the outcomes that you're hoping to drive, and ultimately, what would the ROI be? If this is related to student recruitment and you're going to improve the overall user experience, and you're going to drive more traffic, and you're going to drive better lead gen and student recruitment, or donations through advancement, the ability to do this will pay for itself. You will see better improvement overall. And so, if those are your goals, if that's why you feel you need to do this, that's a great way to make that case. Beyond that, this is something that you can do in pieces if it's necessary. Again, you can do an optimization project where you focus on only the most important things and try to make the case that way. But when it comes down to it, how can you afford not to? If the website is your front door and people aren't finding you, or they're having a bad experience, or your site looks outdated, it doesn't match your brand. There are so many reasons why you might look at your website and say, we need a new website, or we really need a redesign. To me, part of the answer is, how can you afford not to, if you really want to be competitive? We know this is a competitive world in higher education. Small to mid-size liberal arts schools, they're battling every day with other schools like them, and you know who your competitors are. And if they have a better website than you and people are finding them easier, you run the risk of, continuously getting, fewer and fewer students and your performance going down. This is the future of your institution you're talking about. How can you not invest in your website?
Yeah, I think the two additional perspectives that I would add to that is sometimes making it part of a larger whole. So there's oftentimes in institutions where the institution is getting ready for something different than what it was before. Institutions oftentimes leverage an acquisition strategy, furthering partnerships, a presidential change, a new strategic plan, a brand assessment, and a brand overhaul. So there are specific events or things in those nature that you could find that would make the website a redesign just something very logical. And it's not questioned. Now, it's still important to get back to the return on investment and the ROI, because just because it's logical doesn't mean it will be done. There are several logical choices offered to an institution at any given time. So still comes back to the return on investment and working off of what Evan, you were saying, how could you not? How could you not? And show them the cost, being able to show the cost of not doing it. It's an opportunity cost that is lost. It has to be real, tangible in terms of conversion. Those are the things, they can be quantified. They're not exact sciences, but they absolutely can be tangibly qualified. I'd also look at other data points as references. How much content is out of date is a great data point, because that's creating confusion. It's generating phone calls from prospective students and or students. Qualitative information adds to the quantitative. I would kind of show all of that. And then the final thing I would add to this is there is a cost of the current website, and it's not just the cost of the one web developer and the one web designer who's maintaining it. If that infrastructure is outdated, and if the design's outdated, if you could sum up all the individuals playing a role in doing something with the web to keep it going, you will see that the current cost is high. Most institutions do not do labor accounting, but if you did, and you could put a value to it, you will see that cost is high. So comes down to showing the current state in tangible terms, and then showing why it's absolutely necessary. That leads to that return on investment, but finding a starting point and finding a sponsor, those are all important things. But a combination of those, it's a great way to get started. Create the table where the discussion comes alive, and then see the momentum from that table with the right sponsor and the right business case.
That's
Great.
awesome. Thank you so much for that. Those were amazing insights. We are 1 minute to 3, so perfect timing. Thank you again to everyone who attended our webinar today. You will receive an email again, like I said earlier, with a link to the recording and a slide deck, so you can review the slides as you wish. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to email me, Colby Turner. I will put my email in the chat, but it is cturner, Turner, @cora.edu. And yeah, so thank you again. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Kamalika, for doing this today. This was really insightful, and I think it's been great. So thank you again, everyone.
Thank you to our attendees, and Colby, thank you very much. Evan, it was great co-hosting this with you, and hopefully we'll get to do more of these.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great day, everyone.